Commander Zixtal stared at the sensor display with three of his eyes, while the fourth blinked in confusion. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Run the scan again, he ordered his crew. His long fingers tapped against the console, a nervous habit from his 200 years of service. The young officer at the sensor station worked quickly. Her scales shifted from blue to purple, showing her stress. Commander, the reading is the same. There is a ship inside the Forbidden Zone. Zixtal felt his blood run cold. The Kelvar Expanse. The Forbidden Zone. No one went there. No one had gone there for 300 cycles. Not since the ancient war that had torn reality itself apart in that region of space. The Galactic Concordance had built massive warning beacons around it. They had written laws. They had told stories to children about what happened to those who entered. The zone destroyed everything. Ships that got too close simply stopped existing. Some vanished. Others came apart as the laws of physics twisted and broke. Once an entire research station had tried to study the zone from what they thought was a safe distance. They had screamed for 3 days over the communication channels as time itself went wrong for them. Then silence. How far inside? Zixtal asked. 40 kilometers past the barrier, sir. That was impossible. Absolutely impossible. At 40 kilometers, the reality distortions were so strong that matter itself should come apart. Yet the sensors clearly showed a solid object. A ship. What kind of ship? Zixtal moved closer to the display. The sensor officer enhanced the image. The shape slowly became clearer. It was big, maybe 2 kilometers long. The design was crude compared to concordance vessels, with thick armor plating and simple geometric sections. Computer identifies it as human design. Commander? Zixtal's fourth eye blinked again. Humans, the newcomers. They had only joined the concordance 80 cycles ago, practically yesterday in galactic terms. They were still learning basic jump drive technology. Their ships were tough but simple, built like their species, strong but not elegant. But there was no way a human ship could breach the barrier. The Concordance's best scientists had spent centuries trying to develop shielding that could survive even a few minutes in the zone. They had all failed. Try to hail them, Zixtal ordered. The communications officer sent out signals on every frequency. Standard greetings in all the major languages, including human English and Mandarin. Emergency distress acknowledgments. Even old precursor codes that nobody had used in 1,000 years. Nothing came back. Just silence. Life signs? Zixtal asked. Scanning now, sir. The sensor officer worked her console. The ship's hull is strange. It contains elements that I have never seen before. The computer cannot identify some of the materials. They should not exist in normal space. Zixtal felt a chill run down his spine. Materials that should not exist. That sounded like contamination from the zone itself. If the ship had been inside long enough, reality would have changed it. But are there life signs? He pressed. I cannot tell, sir. The hull is blocking our scans. But there is no engine signature. No heat bloom. No radiation that would suggest active power systems. The ship appears completely dead. Then how did it get there? Nobody had an answer. Zixtal looked at the ship on his display. It just sat there, 40 kilometers inside hell itself, as if it had every right to be there. The longer he stared, the more wrong it felt. The ship had not been there 6 hours ago during their last patrol sweep. He was certain of that. It had appeared sometime in the night cycle, from nowhere. Send an emergency report to High Command, Zixtal said. Priority Alpha. Tell them we have a confirmed breach of the Kelvar Expanse. Unknown vessel, possibly human origin. Request immediate instructions. As his crew worked to send the message, Zixtal kept watching the mysterious ship. His science officer, Velm, moved to stand beside him. Velm was old even by their species standards. He had served on the border patrol for 90 years. I have heard stories about the zone, Velm said quietly. My grandfather served here during the last incident. The colony ship? Zixtal knew the story. Everyone who served on the border knew it. Yes, 312 cycles ago, a colony ship full of Vexnari refugees tried to take a shortcut through the edge of the zone. They thought the warnings were exaggerations. They were wrong. What happened? The ship came out the other side. My grandfather's patrol found it. But everyone aboard was dead. Not just dead, Commander, changed. Their bodies had aged thousands of years in minutes. Some had turned inside out. Some had become things that were no longer alive but would not stop moving. The patrol had to destroy the ship. They had no choice. Zixtal looked at the human vessel. You think the same thing happened here? I do not know. But I know this. The last time something came out of the Kelvar expanse, it destroyed 3 star systems before we could contain it. The Concordance lost billions of lives. The communications console beeped. High Command was responding fast, too fast. That meant they were scared. Orders from High Command, sir, the communications officer said. We are to maintain position and observe only. Do not engage. Do not approach. Do not enter the zone under any circumstances. A science team is being dispatched. Estimated arrival time is 36 hours. Acknowledged, Jixtal said. For the next several hours they watched. The ship did not move. It did not respond. It just existed silent and dark in a place where nothing should exist. Jixtal tried to imagine what could have happened. Had humans developed new technology? Had they stolen something from the precursor ruins that were scattered across the galaxy? Were they foolish enough to experiment with things they did not understand? But humans, despite being newcomers, were not stupid. He had met several during diplomatic functions. They were aggressive and confident, yes, sometimes too much so, but they were not suicidal. They would not send a ship into the Forbidden Zone on purpose. So how had it gotten there? The hours passed slowly. Jixtal's crew worked in shifts, but he stayed on the bridge. He could not look away from the mysterious vessel. Then, 32 hours into their watch, something changed. Commander. The sensor officer's voice was sharp with alarm. The ship, sir. Something is happening. Jixtal leaned forward. On the display, the dark shape of the human vessel was transforming. Lights were coming on. First one, then another, then dozens. Running lights along the hull. Window ports glowing with interior illumination. Navigation beacons beginning to pulse. Are they powering up? Jixtal asked. I am detecting energy readings now, sir. Power systems activating throughout the ship. Life support coming online. Life signs. The sensor officer's scales turned bright yellow with shock. Yes, Commander. I am reading life signs now. Multiple signatures? No, wait, just one. One human life sign. There is someone alive on that ship. Jixtal stared at the vessel. Someone was aboard. Someone had survived inside the Forbidden Zone, and now after sitting dark and silent for hours, they had turned on the lights. Someone aboard that impossible ship was awake, and they wanted to be seen. The diplomatic Nexus station orbited a neutral star, halfway between the major powers of the Galactic Concordance. It was here that wars ended and alliances began. Today it was filled with fear. Ambassador General Krelvo stood before the Emergency Council. His species did not show emotion easily, but his skin had turned a dark gray that everyone recognized as concern. He had called this meeting within hours of receiving Commander Jixtal's report. We have a crisis, Krelvo said simply. A human vessel has appeared inside the Kelvar expanse. It should not be possible, yet it is there. The council chamber filled with noise as representatives from dozens of species began talking at once. Krelvos raised one massive hand for silence. I have asked Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Diplomatic Corps to join us. She may have answers. Sarah walked into the chamber trying not to show her nervousness. She was young for this job, only 34, but Earth had sent her because she was good at staying calm. Right now, staying calm was hard. Every alien eye in the room was looking at her. Captain Chen, Krelvo said. Do you know anything about this ship? Sarah pulled up a holographic display from her data pad. The image of the mysterious vessel appeared in the center of the room. I recognize it, she said. Her voice was steady, but her heart was racing. This is the TRSC Prometheus. Terran Republic Space Command. It was a colony ship. It disappeared 60 years ago. The chamber erupted again. 60 years. That was a long time, even for species that lived for centuries. Where did it disappear? Asked a Vexnari counselor. Near the Orion Spur. It was carrying 15,000 colonists to a new world. One day it just stopped responding to communications. Search teams found nothing. No debris, no distress signals, no trace. We assumed it was destroyed, maybe by pirates or a reactor failure. We had a memorial service. Families mourned. And now it appears in our most dangerous forbidden zone, Krelvo said. How? I do not know, Sarah admitted. 60 years ago, we barely had working jump drives. We definitely did not have technology that could breach the Kelvar expanse. Nobody does. Could it be a trap? Another counselor asked. Perhaps the humans are trying to learn our secrets about the zone. Sarah felt anger flash through her, but she kept her voice level. With all respect, counselor, we do not use 15,000 of our people as bait. If the Prometheus is there, something terrible happened to it. Krelvo studied her. He had dealt with humans before. They were emotional, quick to anger, but also fiercely protective of their own. He believed her. "I am authorizing a specialist team to approach the vessel," he announced. "Captain Chen, you will join them. You know human systems better than any of us." "Thank you, Ambassador General." "Do not thank me yet. This is extremely dangerous. If something goes wrong, we may not be able to save you." Sarah nodded. She understood. But she also knew that if there was even a small chance someone from the Prometheus was alive, she had to try. The specialist team assembled quickly. They used a small ship with experimental shielding, designed to survive short periods near the zone's edge. It was not meant to go inside, but it could get closer than a normal vessel. The trip from the Nexus to the Border Patrol position took 8 hours. Sarah spent most of that time reading everything she could find about the Prometheus, the crew manifest, the ship's specifications, reports from the search mission that had found nothing. Captain Michael Torres had commanded the ship. He was a veteran, careful and skilled. Sarah found old interview footage of him before the launch. He spoke about his dreams for the colony, about giving humanity a new home among the stars. He had seemed like a good man. Now, 60 years later, his ship sat in hell. When they arrived at Commander Zixtal's position, Sarah got her first real look at the Prometheus through the view screen. It looked wrong. The hull was the right shape, but the metal seemed different. It shimmered in ways that hurt to watch. Some sections looked newer than they should, while others looked ancient. Time itself seemed confused about how old the ship was. "We are detecting a life sign," said the team's sensor specialist. "Just one, human. The signature is weak but stable." "Just one?" Sarah felt her stomach drop. 15,000 people had boarded that ship. What about the others? No other life signs detected. "I am sorry, Captain Chen." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. 15,000 people gone, but one person was alive. That was something. That was hope. "Can we communicate with them?" she asked. "I will try." The specialist sent out a communication signal, carefully directed at the Prometheus. For a long minute, nothing happened. Then the speakers crackled. "This is Captain Michael Torres of the TRSC Prometheus." The voice was rough, tired but human. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. "Request immediate assistance. I am the last survivor." "Captain Torres, this is Captain Sarah Chen of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. We are here to help you. Can you tell us what happened?" There was a pause. Then Torres spoke again. "Not over an open channel. Too dangerous. You need to get me out of here first. The zone, it changes things. Changes people. I have held on this long, but I do not know how much time I have left. We are going to extract you, Captain. Hold tight." Sarah turned to Krelvos, who was monitoring from his ship. "We need to go in and get him." "Absolutely not," Krelvos said. "I cannot authorize a rescue mission into the zone. The risk is too great. He is a human being who has survived something impossible for 60 years. We cannot leave him there to die. One life against billions. Captain Chen, if we breach the zone and release something, if we bring back contamination, the cost could be catastrophic. Then what do you suggest?"
"We just watch him die?"
The channel was silent for a moment. Sarah knew Krelvos was struggling. He was a good man in his own alien way. He believed in protecting life. But he also had to think about the bigger picture. "I will consult with the council," Krelvos finally said. "But I promise nothing." Sarah wanted to scream. She wanted to grab the controls of the specialist ship and fly it into the zone herself. But she also knew that would not help Torres. She needed to be smart. "Ambassador General," she said carefully, "the Concordance has laws about helping those in distress. You taught us those laws when we joined. They say that every sentient being has a right to rescue. Are you going to break your own laws?" It was a risk. She was essentially accusing him of hypocrisy in front of his crew and the council. But sometimes risks were necessary. Krelvos was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. "You are correct, Captain Chen. I will authorize a minimal extraction team. 2 people in environmental suits using the fastest method possible. In and out no more than 10 minutes inside the barrier. If anything goes wrong, we seal the zone completely and accept the loss." "Understood. I volunteer to be on the team." Denied. "You are too valuable as a liaison." "I am sending Velm, our science officer and a medical specialist." Sarah wanted to argue, but she knew when to stop pushing. "Thank you, Ambassador General." As the extraction team prepared, Sarah watched the Prometheus on the screen. Captain Torres was in there alone, waiting. She sent one more message. "Torres, we are coming for you. Just hold on a little longer." "I have held on for 60 years, Torres replied. "I can manage a few more minutes. But hurry. There is something you all need to know. Something important." "The zone, it is not what you think. And I am not the only thing that woke up in here." The channel went silent. Sarah felt cold. Not the only thing that woke up. What did that mean? On the sensors, deep inside the Prometheus, something else was moving. Something that was not human. Something that had been sleeping, and now it was awake. The extraction team moved through the Prometheus like ghosts in a graveyard. Velm's suit sensors were going crazy, showing impossible readings. The temperature in one hallway was absolute 0. In the next, it was hot enough to melt steel. Yet the metal walls showed no damage. "This should not be possible," Velm whispered into his communicator. "Nothing about this is possible," replied the medical specialist, a being named Court who had 4 arms and skin like stone. "Keep moving. We have 7 minutes left before we must leave." The corridors told a story of horror. Frozen bodies floated in some sections, preserved perfectly by the cold of space where the hull had breached. But other sections showed worse things. Bodies that had aged to dust. Bodies that had twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. Some sections had writing on the walls, messages scratched in desperation. "Help us. Time is broken. Do not sleep. If you sleep, you change." Velm tried not to read them. He had a job to do. They found Captain Torres in what had once been the medical bay. He had built a small survival pod from spare parts just big enough for one person. Life support systems from escape pods. Water recyclers from the hydroponics bay. Power cells daisy-chained together. It was an impressive bit of engineering. Torres was inside, connected to medical equipment that was barely functioning. When Velm opened the pod, the human looked up with eyes that had seen too much. "You came," Torres said. His voice was stronger than it had sounded over the communicator. "I was not sure anyone would be brave enough." "We are taking you to quarantine," Court said. "Do not try to move. Your body has been through trauma." They loaded Torres onto a medical stretcher and started back toward the extraction ship. As they moved, Torres kept talking. "You need to understand. The zone, the Kelver expanse, it is not a natural phenomenon. It is artificial." "What do you mean?" Velm asked. "It is a prison. An ancient prison. Something is locked in there. Something terrible. The precursor species, the ones who lived here millions of years ago, they built a containment system. The reality distortions, the time problems, all of it is the walls of a cage. If this is true, what is imprisoned?" Velm helped navigate around a collapsed section of corridor. "I do not know exactly. I only know it is waking up. And when it fully wakes, it will break free." They reached the extraction ship with 2 minutes to spare. The pilot did not wait. As soon as they were aboard, she activated the engines and flew as fast as the ship could manage toward the safety of normal space. Torres was taken immediately to the quarantine facility on the Nexus station. It was a secure medical wing, designed to handle contamination from unknown sources. The walls were thick, reinforced with every kind of shielding the Concordance could create. Armed guards stood at every door. Sarah was waiting when they brought Torres in. She was not allowed inside the quarantine zone, but she could watch through thick windows and speak through communicators. Torres looked surprisingly good for a man who should be 90 years old and had spent 60 years in hell. He looked maybe 50, with gray in his hair and lines on his face, but not ancient. The medical scans confused the doctors. "Your body has adapted," one doctor told him. "Your cells show changes, mutations. You should be dead, but something has kept you alive." "The zone changes things," Torres said. "I told you. Some changes are bad. Some are good. I got lucky." Over the next hours, doctors examined him carefully. They checked for diseases, for contamination, for anything that might be dangerous. Torres cooperated with everything, answering questions patiently. Finally, they allowed Sarah to speak with him privately through the communication system. "Captain Torres, I am Sarah Chen. I need you to tell me everything. What happened to the Prometheus?" Torres closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were full of old pain. "We were heading to the colony world. Everything was normal. Then we detected what we thought was a gravitational anomaly. Before we could react, space just opened up. A rift, a tear in reality. It pulled us in. Into the Kelvar expanse? Yes, but it was not instant. It felt like we fell for days, weeks through something that was not normal space. Time stopped making sense. Some people aged. Some got younger. Some just stopped existing. I tried everything to save them. Sarah heard the guilt in his voice. It was not your fault. 15,000 people, Captain Chen, families, children, I was responsible for them. And I watched them die one by one. Some went crazy. Some just gave up. The zone gets in your head. It makes you see things, believe things that are not real. But you survived. I almost did not. I wanted to die many times. But I found something. In the deepest part of the zone, there are ruins. Precursor ruins. Ancient technology. I found a database and I learned to read it. That is how I know about the prison. What did you learn? Torres leaned forward. The precursors fought something. A being, an entity, I am not sure what to call it. It existed in multiple dimensions. It consumed entire stars, entire civilizations. They could not kill it, so they trapped it. They built the containment field and locked it away. But the field was never meant to last forever. How long was it supposed to last? 1,000,000 years? Maybe 2. I do not know exactly. But it has been breaking down for thousands of years. The reality distortions, those are the cracks in the prison. And every year the cracks get bigger. Sarah felt fear creep up her spine. How much time do we have? Based on the data I found? Maybe 10 years. Maybe less. When it breaks free, it will start consuming everything nearby. Star systems, planets, billions of lives. And it will spread. Can it be stopped? Maybe. The precursor database included maintenance protocols, ways to reinforce the containment. But it requires going into the zone, going deep, all the way to the center. And it requires someone to stay there, constantly refreshing the containment codes. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves. The room was silent. Sarah understood what Torres was really saying. He had come back not just to escape but to warn them, and to offer a solution that required someone to die. Why did the ship appear overnight? Sarah asked. Commander Zixtel said it was not there, and then suddenly it was. I used the precursor navigation codes. They let me create a stable pathway through the dimensional layers. It took me 3 years to figure out how. 3 years of trying, failing, watching my few remaining crew members die. Finally, I got it right. But the pathway only lasted a few hours. I barely made it through. You escaped alone. I was alone. The last crew member died 6 months before I found the codes. Her name was Lieutenant Sarah Kim. She held on longer than anyone. I told her I would get out. I told her I would make sure people knew what happened. That was the promise that kept me going. Sarah wiped her eyes. She had not known Lieutenant Kim, but hearing the story made it real. These were not just numbers. They were people. What happened when you came through? She asked. Torres looked troubled. Something followed me. Or something woke up when I opened the pathway. I felt it. A presence, angry, hungry. It knows I escaped. And it knows I have the codes. As if responding to his words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Commander Zixtel's voice came over the communication system. Emergency alert. The Prometheus is transmitting. We are receiving a signal. What kind of signal? Krelvos demanded. Unknown origin, not human design. The signal is strong, and it is directed at the station. At quarantine specifically. Torres stood up in his room, his face pale. It is calling me. It wants me to come back. It knows I have the knowledge to repair the containment. If I go back, it can force me to free it instead of reinforcing the prison. You are not going anywhere, Sarah said firmly. You do not understand. It is strong. It can reach through the cracks. It can affect minds, twist reality even outside the zone. If it focuses on me, I do not know if I can resist. The lights in the quarantine room flickered. On the monitors, doctors and guards stumbled, holding their heads. Something was pushing through, trying to reach Torres. We need to block the signal, Krelvos ordered. Shut down all communications. Increase the quarantine shielding. But Torres was already changing. His eyes were becoming distant. Sarah pounded on the window. Torres! Captain, stay with us! He looked at her, and for a moment she saw him fighting. Saw him refusing to give in. Tell Earth, he gasped. Tell them humans can help. We are different. We can resist it better than other species. I do not know why, but it is true. You need human help to fix this. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed. The entity in the zone had noticed Torres escaped, and it wanted him back. Earth received the emergency transmission at midnight Greenwich time. Within an hour, every major government knew about it. Within 6 hours, the United Earth Council was in session. They are asking for our help, President Okafor said. She stood before the council chamber, her face grave. The Concordance admits that they cannot handle this threat alone. Captain Torres believes humans have a unique ability to resist the entity's influence. What kind of ability? Asked the Chinese delegate. We do not know exactly. But Torres spent 60 years in the zone while every other species aboard his ship died within months. He believes our psychology, our stubbornness gives us an advantage. Or we are just too stupid to know when we are beaten, someone muttered. Okafor glared. This is not a joke. If this entity breaks free, it will destroy everything, including Earth. We need to help not just for the Concordance, but for ourselves. The European delegate raised her hand. What are they asking us to do? They want us to send a ship and crew into the zone, to reach the containment structure at the center and repair it. It is a volunteer mission. It is also probably a suicide mission. The chamber erupted in argument. Some said it was insane to risk human lives. Others said it was humanity's chance to prove themselves to the galaxy. Some worried about the cost. Others worried about what would happen if they did nothing. Finally, General Martinez stood. He was old, a veteran of the border wars and half a dozen other conflicts. When he spoke, people listened. I say we do it. We send our best people, our best ship, and we show the galaxy what humans can do. We have always survived by going where others would not, by doing what others could not. This is our nature. The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would send help. The TRSC Defiance was humanity's newest and most advanced ship. It was built for extreme environments, with armor thick enough to survive a star's corona, and engines powerful enough to escape a black hole's gravity. If any human ship could survive the zone, it was this one. Sarah volunteered immediately. She had seen Torres's pain, had heard his story. She could not let someone else go without her. Besides, she knew the mission details better than anyone. The crew was small, only 20 people. Military specialists trained in hostile environments. Scientists who understood physics at the quantum level. Engineers who could fix anything with whatever materials they had. And Sarah, their liaison with the Concordance, they trained for 3 days. 3 days to prepare for something that could not really be prepared for. Torres, recovered from his collapse, helped as much as he could. The entity's attack on him had failed, but it had left him weak. The zone will try to break you, he told them during training. It will show you your fears, your regrets, your worst nightmares. The key is to remember it is not real. Keep your mind focused on the mission. How do you resist? Asked Lieutenant James, the pilot. You be stubborn. You refuse to accept what it shows you. You humans are good at that. You do not give up. Use that. On the 4th day, the Defiance launched. The Concordance provided escort ships, but everyone knew those ships would stop at the barrier. Only the humans would go inside. Sarah stood on the bridge as they approached the Kelvar expanse. She could see the Prometheus still floating inside, a ghost ship that had started everything. Beyond it, the zone stretched out like a wound in space. Reality looked wrong there. Stars bent. Light moved in ways that hurt to watch. All systems ready, Lieutenant James reported. Shields at maximum. Crew secured. Torres, you are sure about the coordinates? Sarah asked. Torres was on board, weak but determined. He refused to stay behind, I'm sure. Follow the pathway I used. It should still be stable enough. Once we are inside, head for the center. The ruins are there. Everyone remember the mission, Sarah said to the crew. We get to the containment structure. We upload the repair codes. We reinforce the prison. Then we get out. And if we cannot get out? Someone asked. Sarah looked at her crew. They all knew the risks. They had all volunteered anyway. Then we make sure the job is done. The galaxy needs this prison to hold. That matters more than any of us. The Defiance crossed the barrier. Immediately, everything changed. The view screen showed impossible things. Space folded. Time stuttered. Sarah saw herself standing on the bridge, but also saw herself as a child, as an old woman, as something that was not human at all. Do not look at the screens, Torres shouted. Focus on your instruments. Trust your training. Lieutenant James gripped the controls. His hands were shaking, but he kept the ship steady. The Defiance pushed deeper into the zone, following the coordinates Torres had provided. The ship itself began to change. Metal flowed like water, then hardened again. Colors shifted through spectrums that should not exist. But the hull held. Human engineering was strong, stubborn, just like the people who built it. I see my daughter. One crew member whispered. She is calling for help. It is not real, Sarah said firmly. Your daughter is safe on Earth. This is the zone trying to break you. Do not let it. The crew member closed his eyes and nodded. Sarah watched him fight the illusion. She saw him win. That was when she understood what Torres meant. Other species might have better technology, longer lives, more experience. But humans had something else. They had willpower. The ability to look at impossible things and say, I do not care. I am going to do this anyway. The zone threw everything at them. They saw loved ones die. They saw Earth burning. They saw themselves becoming monsters. But every time they pushed through it. The ruins are ahead, Torres said. 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes felt like hours. The Defiance shook. Systems failed and repaired themselves. One crew member started screaming and had to be sedated. But they kept going. Then they were there. The containment structure hung in space like a massive sphere made of light and geometry that hurt to look at. It was beautiful and terrible. Precursor technology, millions of years old, still functioning but clearly failing. The repair port is on the southern hemisphere, Torres said. He was sweating, his hands trembling. We need to dock there. James brought the ship in carefully. The sphere was huge, maybe 100 kilometers across. Up close, Sarah could see the cracks Torres had mentioned. Reality leaked through them like light through broken glass. They docked. Torres led a small team to the repair port with Sarah and 2 engineers. They wore special suits, but Sarah wondered if suits would matter here, where the laws of physics were suggestions. The inside of the structure was worse than the zone outside. Impossible angles. Distances that changed. But Torres knew the way. He had studied the precursor database for years. They reached the control center. It was a room that should not exist, filled with technology that looked like art. Torres moved to a central console, his fingers flying over controls that should not work for human hands but did anyway. Uploading the repair protocols, he said. This will take 10 minutes. As he worked, Sarah felt something watching them. The entity. It was close now. She could almost see it through the cracks in the containment. Something vast. Something hungry. Something that wanted to consume stars and civilizations. It knows we are here, she whispered. Of course it does, Torres said. It has been waiting for this. Waiting for someone to either free it or strengthen its prison. The console beeped. Upload complete. Now for the hard part. What hard part? Sarah asked. Torres looked at her with sad eyes. The containment needs a conscious mind to maintain it. Someone has to stay here feeding it power, refreshing the codes constantly. If they stop, even for a moment, it fails. You mean someone has to stay here forever? Yes. Sarah looked at the console. She looked at Torres. She understood now why he had been so determined to come back. He had always planned to stay. No, she said. Captain Chen, there is no other way. Maybe there is. What if we set up a rotation? Teams of humans taking shifts. No one stays forever, but the containment never lacks a guardian. Torres stared at her. That could work. If you could convince people to volunteer. If Earth would commit to it. They will. We are stubborn, remember? We do not quit. For the first time in 60 years, Torres smiled. A real smile, then let us save the galaxy. The entity felt them working. It pushed against its prison, trying to break through, trying to stop them. The containment structure shook. Cracks spread across the walls like lightning. It is fighting us, Torres said. His hands moved faster over the controls. I need more time. Sarah looked at her 2 engineers. Can we slow it down? How? One asked. We are not soldiers. We cannot fight something like this. We do not need to fight it. We need to distract it. Sarah understood now what Torres had been trying to explain. The entity was powerful, but it was focused on the physical world. It tried to break things to twist reality. But humans were different. Their minds worked in ways the entity did not expect. Everyone listen to me, Sarah spoke into her communicator, reaching the whole crew. I need you all to think. Think about Earth, about home, about the things you love. Make those thoughts loud. Make them bright. If this thing can push into our minds, maybe we can push back into its awareness. That is insane, someone said. This whole mission is insane. Do it anyway. Across the Defiance, 20 humans closed their eyes and thought about home. They thought about families and friends, about blue skies and green grass, about music and laughter and all the small beautiful things that made life worth living. They thought with everything they had, and the entity felt it. For something that had existed for millions of years in darkness and isolation, the sudden burst of human emotion and memory was like a bright light in its face. It recoiled. "It is working," Torres gasped. "Keep going. I am almost done." Sarah thought about her mother, who had raised her alone after her father died. She thought about her first day at the academy, about the first time she saw Earth from space and realized how small and precious it was. She thought about Captain Torres, alone for 60 years, refusing to give up. She thought about being human, and how that meant never accepting defeat. The entity pushed back. It showed her horrors. It showed her everyone she loved dying. It showed her Earth burning, cities turning to ash, billions of people screaming. "Not real," she whispered. "You cannot scare me. I am human. We do not scare easy." Torres input the final sequence. The containment structure blazed with light. The cracks began to seal. The entity screamed, a sound that was not sound but somehow rattled through their bones and minds. "Done," Torres said. "The containment is stable, but someone needs to stay. Someone needs to maintain it." "I will stay," Sarah said immediately. "No." Torres shook his head. "You have to go back. You have to convince Earth to send more volunteers, to create the rotation system you talked about. I will stay first. I will hold it until the next team arrives. Torres, you are too weak. I am weak in body, but my mind is strong. I have done this before. I can do it again." He moved to the central console, placing his hands on the interface. Immediately, his body relaxed. The interface was feeding him energy, keeping him alive. "Go, tell them what we did here. Tell them humanity saved the galaxy." Sarah wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She touched his shoulder once, then led her team back to the Defiance. The trip out of the zone was harder than the trip in. The entity was angry now. It threw everything at them. But the crew had learned. They faced each horror with stubbornness and strength. When one person started to break, another would remind them it was not real. They supported each other, humans working together. That was their real power. The Defiance burst through the barrier into normal space. Alarms were screaming. Half the ship's systems were damaged. But they had made it. Commander Zixtal's patrol ship was waiting. So were a dozen Concordance vessels. They had been prepared to seal the zone completely if the mission failed. "Captain Chen," Krelvos's voice came over the communicator. "What is your status?" "Mission successful, Ambassador General. The containment is repaired and stable, but we need to talk." The debriefing took hours. Sarah explained everything. The rotation system, Torres volunteering to stay, the need for more human volunteers, the entity and how close it had come to breaking free. The Concordance Council listened in silence. When she finished, Krelvos spoke. "You are asking us to believe that humanity will commit to an eternal mission, that you will send volunteers to live in that horror, maintaining a prison possibly for thousands of years." "Yes," Sarah said simply. "Why would anyone volunteer for such a thing?" Sarah smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who understood something fundamental. Because we are human. Because someone has to do it. Because when we see a problem that needs fixing, we do not walk away. We are stubborn like that. The council voted. They agreed to support the mission. They agreed to provide supplies, ships, and resources. But the Guardians would be human. Only humans could resist the entity's influence well enough to do the job. Sarah returned to Earth a hero. But she did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had seen the edge of the abyss and knew someone had to stand guard there. She gave speeches. She explained the mission. She asked for volunteers. Within a week, 10,000 people had signed up. Some were military. Some were scientists. Some were just ordinary people who wanted to help. They were young and old from every nation and background. But they all shared one thing. They were human, and humans did not run from hard jobs. 3 months later, the first rotation team arrived at the containment structure. Torres was still there, still maintaining the systems. He looked tired but content. "You came back," he said when Sarah led the team inside. "I promised I would." We all did. They established a small outpost near the control center. Rotation shifts were 3 months long, enough time that no one would break under the strain, but long enough that they could maintain consistency. The teams worked in pairs, supporting each other. They called it the Last Watch, humanity's gift to the galaxy. Their promise that the entity would never escape. Sarah returned to the watch herself 6 months later. She spent her 3 months at the controls, feeling the weight of the entity pressing against its prison, feeling the power of the containment holding it back. It was hard. Some days the entity would whisper to her, showing her tempting things, offering her power, showing her false visions of freedom, but she held firm. And when her thoughts wavered, her partner would remind her why they were there. Years passed. The last watch became legend. Other species spoke of it with awe and confusion. How could one species commit to such a burden? How could they maintain it generation after generation? But humans understood. It was what they did. Someone had to stand guard. Someone had to do the hard, unglamorous work of keeping the galaxy safe. And if no one else could do it, humans would. 10 years after that first mission, Sarah visited the memorial station that had been built near the zone. It was a place where families of the Watch could come, where the Concordance held ceremonies honoring the Guardians. There was a statue of Captain Torres there, made of metal that shimmered like the hull of the Prometheus. The inscription read, "He spent 60 years alone in darkness so that billions could live in light." But the statue Sarah loved most was different. It showed a group of humans standing together, looking toward the forbidden zone. The inscription was simple: "The Last Watch. Humanity stands guard." Commander Zixtal found her there. He was old now, even by his species' long standards, but he still served on the border patrol. "I never understood your species," he said. "When you first joined the Concordance, we thought you were aggressive, dangerous, too quick to fight." "We are all of those things," Sarah admitted, "but you are also this." He gestured to the statue. "You are willing to sacrifice, to endure, to do what must be done even when it costs everything. Someone has to. That is what I have learned. Humans always say that. Someone has to, and then you do it." Sarah looked at the forbidden zone. Somewhere in there right now, 2 humans were at the controls, maintaining the containment, standing watch. In 3 months they would be relieved. New Guardians would take their place. It would continue forever or as long as humanity existed. "We are not heroes," Sarah said. "We are just stubborn." Jixtal made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your stubbornness saved the galaxy, Captain Chen. Perhaps that is the same thing." On the Defiance, now permanently assigned to the Watch as a transport ship, Lieutenant James prepared for another run to the containment structure. New volunteers were aboard. They were nervous, excited, determined. He remembered that first mission. The fear, the impossible things they had seen, but also the pride of knowing they had done something important. "Ready when you are, Captain," he reported. Sarah looked at the young faces of the new volunteers. She saw herself in them, saw the determination, the stubbornness, the very human refusal to quit. "Take us in, Lieutenant." The Defiance crossed the barrier once more. Behind it, Concordance ships watched. They would always watch now. The humans had taught them something important. Some jobs needed doing even when they were hard, even when they were dangerous, even when they never ended, and humans would do them. Because someone had to. Because that was what humans did. In the depths of the Kelvar expanse where reality twisted and ancient things pressed against their prisons, humanity had found its purpose. Not as warriors or explorers or diplomats, though they were all these things, but as guardians. Standing watch in the dark places,